Hey, FlimsyLunchTray here, and welcome to World of Warships in our Saturday edition video, as we're going to be doing an upgrade and commander build video on the Tier 10 heavy cruiser, the Salem. So let's hop right into it. So first off, let's talk about her armor. Her armor scheme is very similar to that of the Des Moines, the Tier 10 heavy cruiser tech tree, where the Salem you pick up for 244,000 coal, I believe, is full price. And the armor scheme is the same. You have a 27mm fore-end plating, and then the aft-end plating is the same. Same as the deck plating, you get 30mm in the midsection, as well as 30mm side plating. But you have this lower belt a little bit down lower, which is 152mm plating. So oftentimes, if let's say an enemy cruiser, or let's say something like with a 15-inch gun, so let's say something like the Jean Bar. I'm not sure if you can do it with 16-inch, maybe, if you're angled right. A lot of times they think you're showing enough side that they can punch through your citadel, so they aim low. But if you're angled just enough, you actually will just ricochet and bounce. I did that with Buffalo, where I had a Jean Bar uses main battery reload booster, and it just bounces off because you have this thick 152mm plating here. So if you can angle and use that to your advantage, it helps a lot. Otherwise, you're pretty much angled at all times, utilizing the island cover with the Salem. Your guns can be knocked out. You have 203mm plating on the front of the turrets, but on the side they're weaker, just 95. So it doesn't take too much for these guns to be knocked out. Heavy cruisers, even light cruisers at the high tiers can knock them out. The back of the turrets are 51mm, so even worse. So like if you come out around the island on Des Moines Salem and they're your enemy, definitely aim for the side and the back of the turrets if they're showing them to you, because you can knock them out relatively easy. Especially if you get in a gunfight, let's say bow and bow, like let's say you're a Des Moines or a Salem, then a lot of times you're just exchanging this bow and gun fire, and you're loading the AP, and you're basically each trying to knock out each other's turrets first, and whoever knocks out each other's turrets first wins, basically. So that is the approach to Salem with her armor. Yes, she is a heavy cruiser, but you want to utilize island cover when possible, as I showcased in yesterday's video in randoms, and you can catch that video and I'll tag it here at the end. As far as their modules go, there are no upgrades to get. You have the 2 and 3mm gun. We have rocking a current reload time of 4.8 seconds, which you can get down lower with our commander, and of course the upgrades we take. 180-degree turn time of 28.7 seconds. Maximum HE shell damage 2,800. Maximum AP shell damage 5,000. The Des Moines Salem is known for these 203mm 8-inch guns hitting rather hard. And also that you have improved penetration angles. So other angles where an AP from a cruiser, when you're firing on an enemy ship, won't penetrate with Salem Des Moines. Because you have the improved penetration angles, you are going to be able to get lucky and be able to pin enemy targets much more easily if they are angled to you. So it's something to keep in mind when using her main guns. Her hull, with the build we have, Survivability Expert, we're running 54,200 hit points. Her gun stock range is 15.8 kilometers. You can build this out with the upgrades, and I'll talk about that in a moment. And then you have a 120,000 horsepower engine, which gives you a maximum speed of 33 knots. You can run Sierra Mike combat signal, which is going to get you up to 34.7 knots. So it's kind of funny because I think the Schlieffen is actually still faster than you in a Salem or Des Moines. So the Tier 10 German battleship. As far as the upgrades go, first what I'm going to recommend you take is the main armaments modification, because basically what a ship Salem revolves around is her main battery. Very impressive main battery. So you want to reduce the risk of the main battery becoming incapacitated. That is by -20%. Your main battery survivability you can increase by plus 50%. And if your main battery should get knocked out and you can't use your damage control party to bring it back online, then the repair time is reduced by -20%. And you don't have torpedoes, so you don't have to really worry about that. So this is what I first and foremost recommend. You only take auxiliary armaments really for the AA. If you're trying to go for a full-on AA build, which I don't necessarily recommend, because I think Worcester does a much better job. If you're wanting to do an AA American cruiser build, then I would say do it with Worcester, not Salem. Magazine modification, which reduces the risk of ship's magazine detonating by -70%. You don't need this if you just take the Juliet Charlie combat signal, which completely eliminates the risk of your ship's magazine detonating. You should be running this in randoms, in ranked clan battles, definitely. Or in co-op, I mean, yeah, you can detonate, but you don't really need it, and you can't take the ship in ops, and you can't detonate in ops anyhow, so. The second slot, there's a few options going on here. So let's start off with the stock options. I would recommend the engine room protection if you don't have the coal. This reduces the risk of your engine and your steering gears from becoming incapacitated by -20%. And the repair time, if your engine or steering gears do get incapacitated, is -20%. Otherwise, if you can't afford a special upgrade with coal, I would recommend running the Surveillance Radar modification, consumable action time plus 20%. So right now, with the build that I have 48 seconds of this 8.5 kilometer radar. I'll talk a little more about these consumables here shortly and how it contrasts differently versus the Des Moines. But it's still good to extend your radar time. Alternatively, the other option could be the hydroacoustic search modification 1, which you would use more for defensive purposes to detect torpedoes or maybe that enemy ship in a smoke screen. And you have to swap out radar for that to pick up the hydroacoustic search, which picks up torpedoes 3.5 kilometers away or detection of ships 5 kilometers away. And just to show you, you can just simply click on one of these and it will take you into the armory where you can purchase this with coal. Stock, it's going to cost you, without the coupon, 17,000 coal. With coupon, 12,750 coal. So I always recommend, if you have coal in the coupon, you use the coupon when you buy one of these special upgrades, and you resets once a month, and I always make sure to utilize that coupon every month, as I really try not to buy these special upgrades at full price, because it just helps save on coal. Third slot, I'm running the Aiming Systems Modification 1. The main reason I take this is for your main battery shell dispersion, which is reduced by -7%. So basically this is improving your maximum horizontal dispersion and your maximum vertical dispersion. So by, I don't know how many meters, but you're getting tighter shell groupings. And to me that really matters with Salem, Des Moines. So I definitely recommend running this. You do get a slight buff on your secondary battery firing range. So if I pull that up, your secondary battery is 7.7 kilometers. So sometimes you'll get some use out of your secondary, especially if you have a destroyer trying to YOLO you, or you're in just close quarters combat with some enemy ships. So you do get a little bit of a perk there, in addition to your secondary battery shell dispersion being reduced. But you don't take this cruiser out for secondaries, right? It's all about the main guns. Alternatively, you can run the main battery traverse speed if you're wanting to improve your 180 degree turn time, because you see right now it's 28.7 seconds. But to me, it's not worth it, because if I am aware of an enemy being around and I know I need to get my guns turned in advance, I just try to do it that way. An example of how this would have been helpful would be like yesterday's game that I had, when I had that Yamagiri rushed me. I mean, he didn't kill us, we killed him, but I could have gotten my guns that much sooner on him, as I didn't expect him to do that. But it's not enough for me to because of that one instance, that one off of a Yamagiri rushing me, or DD rushing me, that I want the main battery modification to, because I value the accuracy, especially when you're shooting at enemy ships 13, 14, 15 kilometers away, because you're more likely to be hitting where you're aiming. So and with these guns having a rather quick reload time, it's valuable. For the fourth slots, I'm going to recommend the propulsion modification, time taken to reach full engine power when accelerating, -50%. I had a couple more battles. I played last night, so where I was just accelerating, deaccelerating in Salem, and I was just completely avoiding salvos from Vermont, an enemy Slava, who were firing, let's say, I think they were about 14, 15 kilometers away. I also used this to get in behind island cover when a Vermont shot at me, and the island took all the shells. I didn't take any. So this is really handy, and I recommend this first and foremost. Because of steering gears modification, all it does is it's going to slightly mitigate the damage you take if you're trying to use your rudder and avoid incoming fire. With the propulsion modification, when you accelerate so quickly and you're juking shells, you can completely avoid salvos, especially once you get some practice in on it. So if you're not used to propulsion modification 1, I recommend trying it out, test it out on some of your cruisers. It really helps and makes an overall difference. Not all cruisers is this the best for it, but overall it's really good. You also have damage control system modification 2. This is something you would be taking on like a Stalingrad because you have that longer duration fire time. Alternatively, you could still, of course, take propulsion modification 1. But this skill you run much more on battleships than you do than on something like a Salem, as an example. So this has always helped me so much more than any of the other choices. So I do recommend that first and foremost. For the 5th slots, concealment system modification 1. This gets your concealment, including concealment that I'm running on Halsey here, down to 10.9 kilometers. It also decreases your squadron detectability range, so we're only getting picked up by aircraft from 6.4 kilometers away, same as Des Moines. And dispersion of shells fired by enemies attacking your ship is plus 5%, so that means the enemies have worse accuracy dispersion when they're firing on your ship. It's plus 5%, it's not a lot, but it's still something to take into account. Otherwise, the other option you can go, you could go possibly for a, go back to here, for a lighthouse build, which I'm going to try with Salem at some point, but I've just not gotten that far yet. And that would be you forego all your concealment, and then you would take steering gears modification 2, so your rudder shift time negative 40%, steering gears repair time negative 80%, so you're getting your maneuverability that much more improved. Our rudder shift time right now is 8.6 seconds, so then you'd be getting that down to like 5 seconds. When we look at that, I would still run this. Yeah, I'd keep everything pretty much the same if I was doing a lighthouse build. I mean, maybe you want hydro instead, but the surveillance radar is good. And then the main battery modification 3 works well for the concealed build or for the current build I have, the stealthy build to get in close and utilizing island coverage. Main battery modification 3 reduces your main battery reload time to negative 12%. So you can see that it's the 4.8 seconds currently with the build we have. But we take a nerf on our main battery traverse speed, and that's what's extending us up to that 28.7 seconds. I have had people, and I've even watched them on Twitch, who ran the gunfire control system modification 2 because they wanted to get that additional range out of their Des Moines, their Salems. And they're like, no, this is the way to go. And then they switched to main battery modification 3, or they test it out, and like, oh my gosh, I wish I would have been running this sooner. So that has been my experience. I've always kind of gone for this because of your DPM. And with Salem, you use a more aggressive positioning than Des Moines, as an example, because of your specialized repair team. You can heal back a lot more damage than what you can in Des Moines. So this means you're getting up close and personal with enemy ships. So if you're playing your Salem at our current range, so if you decide I want to play my Salem at 16 kilometers, 17 kilometers, I'd be questioning you why, because you'll be getting to lose out on a lot of Salem strengths, in my opinion, if you're trying to play this ship at range. So if maybe you run this already, you have Salem, I would encourage you to test out main battery modification 3. Otherwise, you have the AA build option of the auxiliary armaments modification 2. It does buff your secondary reload time, but the main thing is the AA upgrades you're getting with your AA damage, AA shell explosion, number of flak produced by AA defenses when your defensive AA fire is consumable and is active. Again, I think Wooster fits the AA role better. You can see already the rating is 92 versus where we're at right now is 82 here versus 92. And that's still not a full AA build booster. Neither, of course, is the way I have Salem set up, because you're going to have matches without enemy aircraft. The way I would say builds make more sense on Salem, let's say you're divisioning up with a clanmate, a friend, and they're running a carrier, so you're definitely seeing aircraft carriers on the enemy team. Otherwise, if you're playing more solos and even in ranked clan battles, this overall build you're going to find much more competitive and make more sense for you. In terms of the consumables, so you get your standard cruiser damage control party, action time of 5 seconds, reload time of 40 seconds, unlimited number of charges. And this is where we begin to find a lot of differences between the Salem and Des Moines, or I say a lot of differences. Essentially, there's 3 differences between Salem and Des Moines. The first is the specialized repair teams. Restores a considerable portion of your ship's health pool by repairing damage within a short period of time. So HP per second is 1084 for an action time of 20 seconds. Now, that's without having the India Delta combat signal, which improves the amount of HP we're able to restore. So if I mount that, we jump up to 1,300, and we were just at 1,084. So with Salem, you definitely want to run the India Delta combat signal to get the most out of your heal, because its action time is 20 seconds, and I'm pretty sure on Des Moines, it's 28 seconds action time, and you're only getting back 303 even with India Delta. So what this means is that you can take a lot more punishment in your Salem than you can in the Des Moines, because your reload time and your heals are the same, except you're able to heal back greater damage that you've taken. Of course, it depends on what type of damage you've taken. You know, if it's some torpedoes or citadel damage, you're not going to quite get that full repair back versus something like a flood or fire damage. But Salem can take a greater beating and withstand it better than what the Des Moines can, simply because of the specialized repair team. So Salem, if you watch King of the Seas and such, it's used more in aggressive positioning, maybe on a flank line near a cap, than what you would be comfortable with putting a Des Moines in, as an example. Okay. The other difference that second difference that the Salem has versus the Des Moines is her surveillance radar. So here on Salem, you only have an 8.5 kilometer radar range, and I imagine that this is due because they wanted to switch the copy paste of Salem and Des Moines, making them slightly different, because you get the specialized repair teams. I mean, if you had a 10 kilometer radar in addition to the specialized repair teams, I think that would be a bit much. You'd be a bit more of a powerful cruiser. There's 4 differences actually between Salem and Des Moines. I'll talk about that in a moment too. But the radar is not as long. So that's kind of why you see Salem sometimes get used in a little bit more of an aggressive positioning, or a position on the board that's going to cover a little bit more of the map with the radar, or on a flank as an example. So that's the difference you have there. The other is, versus the Des Moines and Salem, is that on Des Moines, you also get to run your hydroacoustic search in addition to radar. You don't get that here on Salem. You have to choose between the radar, or you have to choose between the hydroacoustic search, okay? So detection of torpedoes, 3.5 kilometers, detection of ships, 5 kilometers. So there is a difference there, and even if I switch over to Des Moines, just for you to see, you can see that you have that difference there. And then with the hydro, you choose between the defensive AA. With the radar, you choose between fighter and spotting aircraft. And I thought they took spotting aircraft away, because that's kind of bad to run on Des Moines. Yeah, so you have either the radar or hydro, and you have to choose between one of them. And then the other difference being is that, so yeah, we've covered 1, 2, 3, is that you get the defensive A fire consumable locked in. It boosts your A damage, your continuous damage by plus 50%, and your shell explosion damage plus 300%. So you're always going to have this, where on Des Moines, of course, you have a choice of not taking it, which I don't run it on Des Moines, because I value the radar and the hydro so much. So this is baked in. You can't change it. The fourth difference between Salem and Des Moines, just to cover it, is the 6 slot, which I meant to mention just a little bit ago. You can get the legendary mod that Des Moines gets, and that legendary mod I speak of is locked behind the research bureau, and that's the enhanced propulsion plants. It improves your rudder shift time and time taken to reach full engine power at negative 50%. This is legendary. It's so cool. It's just called a unique upgrade because when you stack it on top of the propulsion modification one, you are just trolling enemy battleships, completely avoiding their salvos, really no problem from a standstill to an acceleration. The Sailing Robin has a video of the Des Moines. I think he says it's a Des Memes video. Check him out. He's my favorite World of Warships YouTube content creator. And he just trolls so much with this. Otherwise, I would be running the main battery modification 3. So I actually have 5.5 second reload time with my Des Moines build. But because that's only tied to the Des Moines, you can't run it on Salem or also have one for Salem. You're just stuck with the main battery modification 3. So you have one less choice. So those are really the 4 differences between Salem and Des Moines, just to cover that for those wondering. As far as signals go, well, what I'd be running here, I'd be taking my Hotel Yankee for ramming. I want to reduce the fire time. I want to take the AA combat signal. I want my consumables to come back online cooler, cool down quicker, so then you can see the reload time is 114 seconds instead of being like 120 seconds, or like the heal, 80 seconds versus 76 seconds. So we take that. I usually take this, and sometimes I don't, or I just try to take these to increase my fire chance, which that puts our fire chance up to 16%, and without it, we are sitting at 14%. So this is probably standard what I would run, because I don't really care to take Yankee on this. Otherwise, if I don't want to run these two, then I would probably do this. But usually I have my repair party. Not always when I take a flood, but I have it there. So this is normally what I would run. Okay, Commander, you've heard me enough talk about the other things. So this is Commander Halsey. If you're wondering how to get him, you get him through the Hit Hard, Hit Fast campaign. And just to show you really quick, because some of you may be wondering how, just go over to campaigns, and we go over to Hit Hard, Hit Fast, Hit Often, and your final task reward is William Halsey. He's at 15 points to get 200,000 credits, 50,000 Lead Commander XP, and the symbol for Admiral Halsey. He has a couple of talents. The first is the Implacable talent. So activates upon earning the Confederate achievement. So your main battery reload time drops down to negative 20%. I actually just activated this a couple days ago when I was playing Salem, but the battle literally ended right after you activated it. When I got the Confederate achievement, you'll find that happens to you probably quite often if you are able to activate the Implacable talent. But your reload time, negative 20% on top of something like Adrenaline Rush in the build we have. So our reload time can quickly drops beneath 4 seconds. So for 9 8-inch guns, that's rather terrifying to the enemy. Torpedo tube doesn't affect us. Aircraft preparation time doesn't affect us because we don't have torpedoes and we don't have aircraft, right? The other skill is the Untraceable skill. I've activated this a couple of times. It's a lot harder to activate this one. And that's getting a double strike achievement. So you kill 2 ships within, was it 10 seconds? 5 seconds? I don't remember now. You have to let me know in the comments for those of you who are aware. Ship's detectability range, negative 10%. Squadron detectability range, and negative 10%. So if our concealment is 10.9 now, basically that means we take 1.09 kilometers off our concealment. So our concealment drops beneath 10 kilometers. So that's kind of fun to do, especially if you're in Des Moines, because that you get to begin to barely be able to stealth radar, which I think is rather funny. But you don't get that too often. But it's possible to get with Salem, Des Moines, not always. You also have 2 enhanced skills for your heavy cruiser. The first is the Grease the Gears. It's plus 20% for the main battery traverse speed versus plus 15%. And then your gun feeder, instead of it being, I think, negative 40%, it's negative 60%. I can check that fact real quick. Don't run it for Rooster. Yeah, negative 40%. So you're going to be switching constantly between the HE and the AP a lot. So that's why I run it, especially for Des Moines Salem. Because the AP of having those improved penetration angles, AP and the HE are both really good, but you will be changing between these a lot. So that's why I run it. So those are the two enhanced skills, and that's why Halsey fits so well on Des Moines Salem. So for your first point, I would recommend taking Grease the Gears. This makes up for that negative 13%, or I should say, yeah, negative 13% nerf you take for the 6th slot, the main battery modification 3, which increases your turret traverse time. So this helps kind of make up a little bit for that when you go for the reload. So that's why I do recommend taking this. For your second point, your third point skill, I guess I should say, your second skill overall, I would recommend taking Priority Target. You really have to have map awareness, especially at tier 10. There will definitely be people who take cross-map shots on you, something like a Shikishima, Yamato, Montana, when you're maybe up along an island and there's a gap in the island, and it just helps you to be aware that someone's targeting you, so you're kind of looking around trying to see what's happening. Also helps you, particularly Salem, if you're not running the hydroacoustic search, when a destroyer is flashing you to dump torpedoes on you. So what I mean by that is when a destroyer targets you torpedoes, if he's the only one aiming at you, it'll go from 1 to just detected. 1 detected, 1 detected. Because a lot of times what the destroyer player is doing, he's alternating between his guns, and when he targets you with his guns, then that will mean someone is aiming at you with their main battery guns, which is that's what it says here in the skill description. When they switch to the torpedoes, it goes away. So then that kind of gives you an indication. I need to cut my speed. I need to alter my speed if I'm going slow. Maybe I need to pick it up. I need to turn, use my rudder shift, something like that. So that gives you some valuable information. So that's just very helpful on top of the map awareness. For 6-point commander, I recommend taking Adrenaline Rush. This improves your main battery reload time for each 1% of your health pool loss. Also helps with your secondary battery reload time, in addition to getting a slight buff on your continuous AA damage. But you're really taking this for the main battery, especially if you activate your implacable talent and getting Confederate, and then getting your reload time down. Like, let's say just with Adrenaline Rush alone, let's say you have half health, you're probably going to get a 4.6 second reload time, and then if you're really low, you can get down to 4.5, maybe 4.4 second reload time. So it just makes you more aggressive in terms of your offensive capacity when you're low health, but granted you're on low health. Then for 10-point, I recommend taking Concealment Expert. This gets you down to that 10.9 concealment that we've been talking about here. And that's just helpful overall for, like I would say, for that standard build for the Salem. After that, I would recommend for your 13-point build, take Superintendent, give yourself the 4 specialized teams, repair parties, the 4 radars or the 4 hydroacoustic searches, and that busts you up to 5 defensive AA fire consumables. This just helps you because this ship really does play around its consumables rather well. So being able to take these helps. I've gotten dreadnoughts in Des Moines. I don't know if I picked one up in Salem before. I think I have. And this just is going to help you overall. So 13-point build. Then for a 14-point build, I'd go ahead and recommend pick up Gun Feeder. So then you can switch between your HE, AP quicker. Then for your 17-point build, then I recommend picking up Survivability Expert, which is a plus 450 per each tier. Otherwise, without this, we can see what it looks like on Des Moines. You're 50,600. For a while, I didn't really believe running Survivability Expert on my cruisers, but then I started to. I don't run it on Minotaur, but I began running on Des Moines, Salem, and I run Halsey for Puerto Rico as well. And I found some good use out of it, because I used to just take the heavy AP shells, which is an alternative that you can take. which increases the damage of a main battery caliber of 190 millimeters and above, and you have 2 and 3 millimeters, so I was getting more AP shell damage. But I found that there are some times that just having that additional couple thousand hit points was actually helping me overall, and it made a difference. So I run that now. I know some community contributors who also run the Survivability Expert on their cruisers, and they're kind of one of the reasons that I switched. And then for your 21 points, what I recommend is taking the top grade gunner. You get a permanent effect of your secondary battery reload time is negative 10%. And then when an enemy ship is detected with your ship's standard detectability range, which is 10.9 kilometers, your main battery reload time will reduce by negative 8%. And you saw me utilize this in yesterday's video, which will be linked at the end of this. And that just helps. So that's helping get our reload time down. If I pull this back up, 4.8 and like 4.5. I think that drops you down to roughly 4.5 seconds instantly. And then take adrenaline rush into account. Then let's say you're really low, you could be running 4.2, 4.1 seconds. So that just works really nice when you build into the reload time of Salem. So that's the 21 point build I run. Otherwise, I know some players like to run the radio location skill, which points in the general direction of the ship closest to you, especially if they're trying to find that pesky destroyer that's nearby. It'll give you a general direction of where they are. I don't run this, and I think that might just come from my experience in playing the game, that I can generally have a good idea or guess where an enemy destroyer is, what direction they are in terms of distance. That's a question differently whether I'm detected or not. But I feel pretty comfortable myself as a player running without the radio location skill. The other thing you can do is, if you want that additional AA damage, you could give up top grade gunner, pick up the AA defense and ASW expert, because you a little bit more depth charge damage as well in addition to the AA. Yeah, to me this just really helps with the offensive capacity, and you might not always have a enemy aircraft carrier, and you might not always have an enemy submarine. So for me, I've always gotten, now that I switched to this build, when I switched from the heavy AP shells to the Survivability Expert, I've just really found this worked well. And of course, you don't take Survivability Expert, you can just take heavy AP shells, which I think works fine as well. And building up into your offensive capacity, because this is like an attacking skill versus this kind of a survivability defensive skill is what this would be known as. But overall, this is what I like running on Salem here. So that being said, if you have questions, let me know in the comments. Let me know what you're running on your Salem. I'm really enjoying Salem. I'm really glad I picked her up for the Cole. She's definitely worth it in my opinion, especially if you are a Des Moines lover. She just does things a little bit differently than the Des Moines in terms of her consumable setup, and just being able to tank and take a lot more damage than what's Des Moines can, and healing it back. So if you liked today's video, give it a thumbs up. If you did not, give it a thumbs down. Subscribe if you do want to see more. If you are subscribed, thanks so much. I really appreciate it, and we'll catch you next time. Take care.